Angelika, welcome. We are so happy to have you here.
Well, thank you.
And congratulations on being inducted this year.
It was awesome. I loved every minute of it. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Oh, well, you're an inspiration to so many folks. There's some things that we want to talk to you about that are not often in your history, are not easily available online. So I think we're going to start early on, and so I know that at age 6, that was the first time that you got on a pony and that you rode, but I want to back up a little bit. So I want you to tell me a little bit about your parents, if you had siblings, what your young life was like.
Well, I was born in '67, and I am the only child. So I am a little spoiled, I suppose. But I could always bring people to the house, so I had lots of friends come over and stay for dinner or stay for a supper or whatever. So I think I did not feel like growing up like an only child only. Mm-hmm. Even though I did have a lot of support from my 2 grandmothers and one granduncle that lived close by, and I think that was very helpful. Because my mother went back to work after I was 3. So she stayed home for the first 3 years, and after that she went back to work because they decided to build a house, and that was the reason to go back full time.
Okay. So did you grow up around horses, or I mean, did you live in a suburban neighborhood? Did you live in a neighborhood with a lot of pastures and horses, or?
Not at all. I come from a not horsey family, and my parents had nothing to do with horses. And so it was a little hard to get into horses. But I have seen a lot of Western movies, and I enjoyed the Indians and enjoyed watching that. And I always wanted to be like them. So that was my idols.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to try to say this. You were born with dysmelia? Am I saying that right?
Dysmelia.
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 Dysmelia. Okay.
Dysmelia.
And so tell me, how did your parents, how were they able to work through this with you?
Well, when I was born, nobody knew that I was going to have a handicap. It was just in those years that sonography was being introduced. My mom was fairly young, at a normal age. She was 27. My dad was 30. They were nothing that was known of in our family. So nobody used sonography, and well, matter of fact, maybe I was lucky that they didn't use it. In those days, they were not very precise, and a lot of times they would have probably said, well, we can't see any legs, so probably there's something wrong with the organs also, we don't know that, and they would have not have any proof of that, so you don't know if I would have been there. So good things and bad things, they're very close together, and so I was born just normally, and I guess the doctors were not very helpful at that point, and just telling my mother that I was having a handicap, and they were taking me away and bringing me to another hospital actually, because they didn't know if anything else was wrong with me, and at those days it wasn't common that the men would be in the hospital, so they called my dad, and I only know that because he told me afterwards. And yeah, well, he said he went back to bed because I was born early in the morning, and just cried for a while. And but his character is that way that, well, the first thing that he does, and I think he has taught me to do that the same way, after he got over that, to just think, okay, what do I need to do now? So he probably had his list in the head pretty soon on what to do and what would be the best support to me. And I think this is what I was really, really, really lucky that he is that type of person. Because my mother on her own, I think it would have been really difficult for her. It was difficult for her to cope with that situation, and till the last end, I think she always figured that she did something wrong. I think that is the mother's thing, that they always believe, oh, was it this? Did I take something, or was it that? Definitely wasn't her fault, that's for sure. But she always felt that way. And I think what what the parents can give a child is actually to learn to cope with the situation, to be flexible enough, and to find ways to do whatever is important for them. And this is what my parents introduced me to.
So when you went to school, I'm assuming were there had to be modifications for you in school, or by that time were you already wearing? Okay.
I got my first artificial legs when I was 10 months old because I started wanting to get up. And so they figured, well, that's the time to get artificial legs. They were not having a knee. They were not having any joints. They were just to stand, to learn how to balance. And they did not have feet, but they had only like plates that you would have a bigger surface that was easier to make your balance. And well, back then, like I said before, in those times, it was uncommon that you would have your parents in the hospital or whatsoever. So they did fit my legs and had me in the hospital. And well, parents were allowed like 2 times a week. And when I got back, I was a little ruined in the head, I suppose. So I was only crying when I saw those legs because I don't wanted to put them on. They were, for me, there was no use. I could crawl around and I was way quicker and I didn't need them. So my parents started, with like 1 minute and 2 minutes and 3 minutes. And I loved to pick flowers. So I guess we didn't have any flowers that had leaves because every time I had to wear my legs, they would put me there so I could pick leaves. So no roses in the garden. Well, roses, yes, but no leaves. And so they got me back into getting the use of using legs. And it's way later that I understood it was the best thing that they did. That for me, it is still normal to wear my legs all day long. It's not that I have to all the time, but I'm capable of doing that. And it helps you throughout the whole life. I would not want to miss to walk with legs. Because to look in the eyes of somebody, to be at the same level, is just a different world. I've experienced that so many times, even though the people do not want to do that, but they do act differently while you sit in a wheelchair all the time. They will touch you on the shoulder, and sometimes I go like, what the hell are you touching me for? You wouldn't do that if I would stand up. You wouldn't. And but you experience this, and I think it's very important sometimes to get up. As a matter of fact, I know my parents would be sad me telling that, but sometimes, even with them, I had the impression I have to get my legs on and I have to stand up. It's really to stand up. And so I would not want to miss that. But society is just built that way, I believe, that we are not there yet to really see the people equal if they're sitting or standing. So definitely, if I can give people advices, if they have the chance, if that is orthesis or is prothesis or whatever, give it a chance. Try it. If you figure later on it's not your thing, fine. But don't give up in the beginning.
Okay. Or would you call yourself an obedient child growing up?
I don't know. I think I was pretty easy, actually. I don't think I've really done a lot of really, really bad things or whatever. I think I got into fights with my parents when I got my first car because I came home like 3 or 4 in the morning because I had to drive home everybody. I was the first one to have a driver's license and who had a car. So that's about the biggest thing that I did, I think. But besides that, I think I was pretty easy.
What did your father do for a living?
Both of my parents were bankers.
Oh, okay.
They both worked in a bank. Yeah.
Okay. So you talk about, and I'm going to get back to horses now. You talk about how you came to the U.S., a family named the Price
family.
Yes,
yeah.
Price family, and that's the first time you got, on a horse without your legs. But
yeah.
How did you meet the Price? How did you even have this connection?
Well, I have to go a little backwards.
Okay.
When I was 16, in Canada as an exchange student. I was in Calgary. I was there for 3 months because I did not want to redo my year in Germany. And it was more or less at home. I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy because they would go out dancing, they would go out skiing, and I figured, I cannot do this, I cannot do that. And so it wasn't easy. But I'm not the person that sits back and just, hopes that time's getting better. So I wanted to do something else. So I went to Canada, which was really a good thing to do because I became way more independent. Besides talking English, yes. And then I actually wanted to go back and see that family, but they didn't have time in the summer. So I went through an organization asking for a family there where I could spend the summer. And they actually got to the stable where Michelle stabled her horse. And the stable, because I said I was horseback riding. And then they did not have time either. And they asked Michelle and her family if they were able to take somebody for the summer. That's how I got to know them.
Okay. And so that was that also your first time in a Western saddle with the Prices?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did ride in a Western saddle before, but always with my legs.
Right.
Yeah. And she was, Michelle, she lost her leg due to bone cancer when she was 8. And she got a horse by Wayne Newton. And that was given to her. And because it was an Arabian, she was afraid that the Arabian would be a little afraid of legs dangling around. So she asked me, because she rode without her prosthesis, and she asked me to do that. And I said, okay, why not? And then we figured out a way that I could get on the horse because it was us two only being in the stable. So out of the car, through the window, on the roof, and from the roof on the horse. So that works pretty good. The shape of the cars were a little different. They weren't like this. They weren't as inclined. So today is a little more difficult.
So was it scary that first time riding that way?
No, it was not scary. I figured for the first time that it didn't hurt because my legs go up so high, and if the horse moves and the leg moves and you have the skin in between, that will just not last forever. So usually I had plaster all over my legs if I rode more than 2 or 3 times a week. And so for the first time I felt like Easter and Christmas together.
Oh.
It was really nice.
But then you also had to learn different ways to direct the horse instead of using leg pressure.
Well, I could not use leg pressure anyway. So, but I didn't have to care about what my legs were doing. So that was pretty cool. And yes, if they were voice trained, if that was like vaulting horses, or if they were voice trained in some way, that definitely would help. And well, it was only then in '89 that I got my first special saddle and started English riding and dressage riding at home.
Did you fall off very often?
Oh yeah, quite sometimes. Well, if the horse barks, then I usually fall off because my center of gravity is so high.
Is very high, right?
Yeah.
So you rode Western there without your legs for the first time, and then you went back home and you got a custom saddle, right?
I went back home and I had a good friend of mine. She is also an anesthesiologist, and she had quite some influence on my life because she was also the reason that when I started medical school and later on became an anesthesiologist. So that Susie Figa is her name. She, when I came back, bought a Western saddle so I could continue to ride in a Western saddle without my legs. So I continued that for a little while in Germany. And then in '89, I was already in medical school, but I did not pass one big exam. So I had like an extra half a year to redo my exams. And well, I found a reason why that had to be that way because I finally got the time to make that saddle.
Okay, it's interesting how life works that way.
Yeah.
I want to talk about medical school in a moment, but I do want to ask you why dressage? Why did you choose?
I don't think it was really a choice at that point. Jumping would be difficult for me, and I tried to jump over little things, yes, but I would have never made it very much further. I think in the States probably I would have done reining or whatever. I don't know, but that was not that common in Germany. So it by chance became dressage, and I just like the unity that you are with your horse, and the precise aids that help the horse move in a certain way, and I think that is just something else.
So how early did you know that you wanted to be an anesthesiologist?
I did not want to be an anesthesiologist. I wanted to be a veterinarian, and that I wanted to be for a very long time. But I did not want to cure the small animals. I actually wanted to be that for bigger animals. And I looked into that. I wrote to there's only 3 universities in Germany that do that. And I wrote if it would be possible for me to do that. And they said, well, yeah, to study that it would be possible. And I got back to people that had disabilities and tried to get in touch with them that did veterinary. So I found out that it would be difficult. I did do like little internships and looked what they did and how they did it. And I figured that I could do it, but definitely it would be difficult if, for instance, you would have a dog that is a little bigger and the owner is not really the owner that could help me out with anything, then it would already get difficult. And to stand your man or your women in the veterinary field would be very, very demanding and very, very difficult, because all the countrymen would not believe that a woman could do that anyway, and a handicapped woman, not at all. And so after a while I figured, well, even if I want to do that really badly, it might be good to look into something else. And this is when I started to look in the medical field for humans. And I figured that there I would find more possibilities for myself. Everybody told me, yeah, well, the walking will not get any better. So when you get older, it's getting more difficult, and you don't have a job that you can do at that point. It might really be too much. I would not want to listen to that, but anyway, I think at the far end it was good that I looked into some other fields before I started to study it.
Were your parents supportive of you wanting to go to medical school?
Yeah, they were supportive. They said, well, whatever you want to do is fine with us. And I was actually the first one to do what we call Abitur. It's, well, to get the degree to go to university. I was the first one in our family to do that. And they said, well, the only thing they can help me with would be like with banking or whatever is their area. Was all the other things they said, well, we're happy for you to support you, but we cannot, help you in any other way as finding out the same things you probably would, but we cannot give you any advices on what would be good or what would not be good for you. Yeah.
Do you think they were proud of you?
Oh yeah, they were proud of me.
Tell me about your first competition, your very first dressage competition.
Very first dressage competition. Well, that was I don't know how old I was back then, but it was definitely with my legs, and it was with that pastor that built a lot of the compensating aids. It was at his stable, and I rode a pony, and well, they had a little competition in the next village, and they entered me in that competition, and matter of fact, I came third. And so for him, the biggest thing was with the prize giving that you do usually with your horse, and then you do a lap of honor, and you usually canter at the lap of honor, and you never know what the horses were going to do, because it's a bunch of horses. And well, they told me a long time after that they were so afraid for me to fall off the horse in the lap of honor.
Yeah.
I did not fall off, and I had a blast. But yeah, for sure I would. They could have not talked me into not doing it.
Yeah.
That was impossible. So that was the first competition.
You have obviously had world championships. You've got European championships. You've participated in the Paralympics. Can you compare or contrast these for us in terms of their level of difficulty among them and the level of competitors that you meet?
Very difficult. You see the same bunch of people, more or less. There might be some more at the Worlds, yes, sure, than at the Europeans. But yeah, every Europeans or Worlds or Paralympics, they will always get the best competitors. So I think what makes a bigger difference for me is being able to compete in the regular horse world. And there it's a totally different level. Well, that's not internationally for sure. I will never make it there, but it is, I think, very amazing on what you can do with the help of the horse, because the horse gives you the opportunity to even compete against able-bodied people. I mean, in what other sport do we have that? That's very unique. It's very special. And some ribbons from horse competitions that I went to, on regular horse competitions, they have for me the same value than medals. And sometimes it's, you know, you go out there and you get a ribbon just for doing a dressage test with the horse against a whole crowd of people that have all their arms and legs and whatever else. And yeah, but you can be better because of the horse, because of your connection with the horse. And I think this is very outstanding.
What was it like for you to go to Atlanta? That was your first, that was Atlanta. That was
No.
the first no?
No, 91.
91.
91 was the second World Championships in Denmark.
Okay.
That was the first internationals. It was also World Championships.
Right.
At that point, we did not even have Europeans. That was only added later on. So that was my first international competition on the German team, was in 91.
Okay. And then, but in 1996 is when they included para-dressage to
the Paralympics. Yes.
And that was in Atlanta?
Yeah.
Okay. So what was that like for you? And I know that also this is where you really do become very supportive of the community of para-dressage, because you become the first to be the representative. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, back in 96, I think being included in the Paralympics was just very special. And to be on the first German team, to be able to go there and to earn a medal there, to win a medal there, was very, very special. But I definitely had no idea what I was going to experience. Nobody had. I knew they were going to draw the horses, and the draw was by the level of education the horses had, and they would take into consideration only like the weight of the rider and how tall the horse would be and the rider would be, so that would, you know, at least match a little bit. But that is all. The rest was by draw. So the chef d'équipe or somebody else would draw the paper and would tell you, okay, number so-and-so, this is your horse. So you would look into the ring and say like, okay, where's this horse? Oh, okay, this is the horse that I was going to try. And matter of fact, in Atlanta, I tried 5 horses. Wasn't that easy, and to give them back, you didn't know if you would get anything better or less good. Because if somebody drew a horse that was really good, then they would definitely keep it. For security issues, you could always give a horse back. But, well, I really had 5 horses in Atlanta, and I ended up with a hunter and jumper. Her name was Amber. And, well, I have still videos of that, and at some point I would love to do a whole tape of all of the horses I have been riding. Today, I would not be able to do that anymore with that horse, because the judges would say, well, the horse is lame. I think the horse was so sore because of doing different movements for 5 to 8 days with me because he has never been trained in dressage really. So he was sore, all the muscles, poor little thing. The first thing I did was I bought him a bridle because it didn't even have a decent bridle to ride him in. So yeah, that was really the beginning of all the circus, and I feel very privileged that I have been able to grow up with a sport. And you mentioned me becoming the athletes representative on IPEC. That was an honor, but I had no clue.
And tell us what IPEC
IPEC was the International Paralympic Equestrian Committee, and I was the athletes representative worldwide, and I had a voice on that committee. So I worked with that committee for 10 years. And it was, well, most of the people that were in the committee were based in Europe, and a lot of the horse things, they did happen in the UK. The UK has a very good system also now to bring the riders up with disabilities, and they have a lot of fundraising and a lot more money to use for those things than we do. And some of the northern countries do that a lot better. The Netherlands and the Danish, and they have very good programs. And fundraising is not into the German understanding in the same way it's been done here. And like people talk to me because I'm searching for a new horse at the moment and say, well, people must be so proud that actually they could maybe have a horse that can go internationally. I said, well, not in Germany. It's not the same way. I meddled with that horse, and I texted that back to the owner of the horse, and it took 3 days to get an answer. So I guess that's just a little different. But yes, I was proud to do that, but I only found out over the year what it meant in work and how to develop the sport and where we would get. And well, they were just about to set up the rules and what we were allowed to do and what we weren't, and how long the horses could be ridden and with what aids they could be ridden. That all of that was new, and all the system had to be revised, and all the compensating aids that we would be able to use, and what was legal and what was not legal. And well, that took a long time and took quite some effort from a lot of people to actually stand where we stand today.
So how has para-dressage changed in Paralympics? I'm assuming because of this committee, and is it the same?
It's not the same at all. It's not the same at all. And I think when you would be able to compare like what you see today and what you've seen in 96 or in 91 even, it's not the same thing. You cannot really compare it. You cannot compare borrowed horses on own horses. The level was way lower. And well, even to find the horses, I know for Sydney they had been searching for like over 100 horses, and they brought them in from over 1,000 kilometers away. That is just a whole lot of effort, and we could not show what we actually were capable of doing as long as it was on borrowed horses. It had still good things to it. I'm still in contact with the people that I borrowed the horse from. I had way more contact to local people when you borrow the horse from them. And also I think it did not leave out poorer countries. And I think that what we have to be very aware of in our times, to not leave the countries behind that don't have the money to afford to bring good horses into another country to do the competitions. And who do not have the horses to lend them to the people, because we can only bring them as own horses. That means I can borrow a horse in Germany, but it definitely is all on own horses wherever I go to do international competitions. So I think that is a challenge we have in nowadays, to really be careful to integrate different countries. Was that understanding, or is that very difficult?
No, that was good. Is there an award you're the most proud of? Is there a competition you're the most proud of, either participating in or, you know, taking home a whatever trophy?
Very hard to say, because they are all in a way so special. So are the awards. I mean, the award that I just got here is a very special one, and I feel very privileged and honored to be amongst those women. The more I find out about them, the more it makes me happy that I'm within that family. But coming back to the horses that I had and that I was able to ride, it's very hard to say, well, this was the horse. I have a horse that was the most successful with me, which was Arriva Avanti, and definitely to earn 2 bronze medals and then a silver medal in London was something very, very special. But yeah, also the gold medal that I won with her by 0.05% in front at the freestyle in 2010 in Kentucky was very, very special because I scored and I came fourth, and a lot of times I came fourth. And it's just the worst place that you could ever think of, and that I was able to turn that around and 2 days later ride for gold was something very, very special, and that I was able to achieve that, because to get that off your mind and staying the fourth and just, you know, go for it for everything that you have with your horse. I think that was really a challenge for me, and I was really proud of that medal. But I wouldn't say there is like one and this is it. And also to be able with my own horse, Gazim, which was my first horse, and who lived with me for 23 years, to be able to do my amateur license for being a horse instructor, well, for becoming a horse teacher, was a very special thing to do. And that after 10 years I was at that level that you have to do dressage, you have to give lessons in jumping and dressage, you have to do, well, exterior, anterior, and all the different things on how to, well, educate horses, and to have to be able to launch the horse. And to do that with my own horse, that was something very special too, even though it wasn't a medal. Yeah.
So the horse has been a great equalizer for you.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Would you say life-changing?
Definitely. I could not imagine the world without horses for me. No, it's not the same quality. And yes, I have been reducing the time that I spent with horses, and I had other things to do, like in medical school or now with the 2 kids, but I never stopped it. And to be honest, I cannot understand anybody that says, I just cannot find the time anymore. Then it's not important enough. I make time for it. Yes, it might be reduced time, and you always have to work around schedules, but there's always time. It's like meeting friends. If you want to meet somebody, you will make time for it. And that's the same thing with horses.
Can you talk a little about your humanitarian work? I know you've got your nonprofit that you and your husband started, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Sundjata?
Sundjata.
Sundjata. Okay. But you've not only that, but you've also done mission trips, right?
No, how I got started in doing that is I got to know an African surgeon, and I did anesthesias for him. And then we got into talking, and he said he started a nonprofit organization a long time ago, and every year or every other year he would try to go to Africa to do surgeries there. And I said, oh, that would be interesting. I would love to do that, because I do like to improvise, and I'm pretty good in organizing. So he said, oh, you would be perfect there. And I said, oh, well, if I sent an application to one of the bigger organizations, they would just say, you know, what the hell does she want with 2 artificial legs and a wheelchair in a third world country? And he said, oh, I know how you work, and for that, I know that would work. Well, I said, okay, whenever you need somebody, then just call me. Okay, half a year later, phone rang. He was on the phone and said, well, we need you now. I said, oh, now, okay, when is that? Well, by when would you know if I can go? Yesterday. I said, okay, can you find somebody else and I'll do it like next year, because that's like really short term. I said, no, we cannot, because I found somebody and she can do the anesthesia, but she's not specialized yet, and she will only go if we have somebody that is specialized in anesthesia to do it. I said, oh, okay. And we need to buy the tickets now. Oh, okay. So I thought it over and I talked to my parents about it, and then I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And yeah, that's one of the first time. And well, actually 2 days before I went, I actually looked up on where I was going. Because he said Guinea. Well, I didn't know New Guinea or Papua New Guinea or whatever. I think there's 5 Guineas in the world. It's the Guinea without anything before or after. So, okay, this Guinea is in West Africa. Okay, I figured that out, and I figured out that they basically spoke French or 8 different other African languages. I said, oh, well, great then, because I had French in school, never used it after. So I went to Guinea for the first time. And, well, I think it was quite educating, because to see how people really live in those third world countries, and it's one of the poorest countries in Africa. Not that they don't have anything, they have a lot. They have a lot of resources, but they have a lot of people that come from all over the world and do the mines, but they don't get anything. They have a corrupt government, and then if it's the Russians, if before it was the Belgians, the Americans, or now the Chinese, and they would do the mines and they would take all the minerals out. They have gold, they have diamonds, they have bauxite. They're the second worldwide biggest bauxite export country, but they don't
What
get
is
anything.
bauxite?
Bauxite, you need it to make aluminum. I didn't know that either. So anyway, so we went there, we did our work there, and I think it's a very rewarding work. It's a very rewarding work because the people are just so thankful. They're just so thankful that somebody cares for them. And if you could not help the person, and if somebody dies, they would still come up and give you a chicken because you cared for the person. And that is just something we cannot imagine here. We live in a different world. It definitely is a different world, and I think it would help a lot if people would just do that for 1 or 2 weeks. They don't have to do it all the time, just to figure out how it is to search for clean water, to get the water, to get it boiling, to have the fire made, to find the chicken, to put it into the cooking pan or whatever, or grill it and eat it, and how long that just takes. And all the things that need to be done, and we just do them like this, and I mean, dishwasher or coffee machine or whatever. I mean, first of all, they have to have the wood, they have to have the fire, they have to boil the water, and even to wash yourself just with, well, the bucket, and you have to heat up the water, otherwise you're just going to have to put up the cold water over you. I really believe it's very helpful if you have experienced that. And I love the shower after, that's for sure. But it is very helpful, and I think it's rooting myself. It's a little bit back to the roots, and if I want to complain about little things that are not working out well at home, well, it still works out. And it's nothing that's going to change your life. And the importance of other things, I think you can see that very much more if you have been to any of those countries. If that is in South America, or if this is in Africa, we have plenty of those. And we here, in that hemisphere, we believe that everybody else lives like us. No, they don't. And it's very good to see that.
How long was that first medical mission?
3 weeks. They make it 3 weeks, and that is what I love about the organization, because it's an amount of time that you can spend in a different country. When you go back, if you're talking about, well, America has the Mercy ships or whatever else, it's not under 6 months that you can do anything. And that is, for a German, is impossible. Because we don't have the fundraising like you do here. So here it would be churches paying them to go. I cannot bring my own money just to be able to live on the ship and then give my work. That is a little different. Mango does that. We collect money, and the people are not paid that go, but we pay all the expenses. So the organization pays the flight and pays the food and pays the transport. And what you do extra, you pay on your own expenses. But this way, if you want, well, in Germany you have like 5 to 6 weeks of vacation during the year, so you can take your 3 weeks and you can do it. And you come back and it's, okay, it was your vacation, but you can still go back to work. You don't have to cancel everything. And I think that is a pretty good way. You can give something back that you have, and you can help a little bit. I know it's a drop. It's a little tiny bit, but for the person that you did surgery with or for, it makes a whole lot of difference, because the hernias that we operated, people can go back to work on the fields because they, with the hernia, they couldn't. And well, we do also do gynecological things, and I think that is very important there too. And we do it not in the urban part, we do it in the rural part of Guinea, which is 400 kilometers inland. This is where no mercy ship comes to. And the people do have problems just to get to the capital, because they just don't have the money to do it. And they don't have the gas. When you see and how they buy gas, it's like in 1 liter bottles, and they buy them alongside the road, and they just put that in the cars that drive there. Yeah, so I think it's a rewarding work, and I enjoy doing it. It gives a lot back to you. And when I came the second time, the people were really amazed that I even did it for a second time. They think, oh, you've seen that once and you're never going to come back. So I think for them it's important to know that every year somebody will come and take care of them.
Can you tell me a little bit about the nonprofit that you and your husband started?
Yeah. When I was there, and I did visit my husband a couple of times privately, because, well, it was the only way to get to know each other a little better, because he would not get a visa. He didn't get a visa for Germany 2 years. It took me 2 years to actually get that for him. And so I went down there and I saw the people with a handicap just begging on the street. And he came up to me and he said, well, if you want to do anything, just do something for them. And I said, well, I started talking to people at home, and we found out that there actually nothing really exists. And there's no non-profit or profit organization that would do anything for handicapped people there. So this is how the idea came up, and we named it Sundjata. If you look up, Sundjata was a king of the Mali Imperium, way back, earlier times, and he had a handicap, and that is why we named the ONG of him, because he had a handicap. He overcame that and became king, and the people there are taught that history, so they know what Sundjata means, and this is why it came to that name. Yeah, and we're at the beginning of that. Got all the papers, and now, well, we will have to collect money and see how things go. And because it's a corrupt country, it will be very difficult. We know that. But if nobody does it, nobody's going to happen. Nothing is going to happen, so we'll do it.
So what strikes us, one of the many things that strikes us about you is that it's as if you're always striving to reach the top or to learn more. I mean, you didn't just learn to ride, you started competing and then judging, and you're not just, a doctor, you specialized, and you don't just donate money and time, you started a nonprofit. So what's behind all this? What's behind this drive?
I don't know. I really don't. It's what I see and what I think is important, and I'll just do it. And I'm not thinking in a way that I would think of, what comes back to me. I wouldn't. I'm not paying attention to that. I will put in as much as it needs. And I do get at a point where I say, well, I cannot do that at this point or that point. Well, it was well, when I started to work in a university hospital, a lot of times you work there and you climb up the ladder there. But I knew if I was going to do that, I couldn't do the riding. So I did not always climb up to the top because I did not want to have the career at a university hospital. But I would still want to do my riding, and I know it's good for me, it's good for my health, it's good for my balance. I would not be able, I think, with 50 to actually walk with my artificial legs if I wasn't that fit, and the horse helps me stay fit. So it's also for my health issues that I do something. It's not that I only do that for somebody else. And well, now I thought, well, the sport is in a different dimension now. It would be interesting to work now for the sport a little more again, and I'm very happy that I actually got elected as athletes representative again just now in Tryon. After that was finished, so I will work for the technical committee of the FEI for our para sport, and I think it's interesting after all those years to get a little more involved into that. But I do see also that there's time limits, because when I see all the emails on what I have to read and what they want me to answer, and yeah, there is limits to that also. But it's, yeah, I think if it's important for me, then I'll just do it.
How do you want to be remembered?
That's a difficult one. That's a difficult question. How I want to be remembered. I think I have to go a little bit back, just a tiny bit. A very influential person to me was Anne Goodall. She doesn't live anymore. She was Australian. She worked for the World Health Organization and hired people. And after the 11th of September, she just said, well, what do I want to do in my life? And she gave up on her career, and she said, I want to work with horses. So she did a lot of research on the psychological side of horses. And I think she influenced me also in just go for it and just do it, and you can do it, and just to believe in yourself. And she said, you are such a role model to a lot of people, and I never figured myself being that. But I find out more and more that is something that I can give to people. I can just, with my life and just the way I lead it, help other people maybe to overcome their challenges that they have in their life. And I think this is what I would love people to remember, is not my personal story, but to take that for them to overcome their challenges that they have in their life.